we'll all agree that Zeke is uber tough, right?
One of the toughest guys in the NFL.
He is a built different football player, which athletes are very different from all of us, correct?
Yes.
Like Mike,
I'm very different from you guys.
Yeah. No, that I 100% agree on.
I'll always remember, as the late, great Ted Nichols-Payne said when we were in spring training in 2020, literally a week before COVID shut down everything, we got in the hot tub, and he said, I was expecting your body to look better.
It's so hurtful. It feels unnecessary. Yeah. So hurtful.
It did look a little bit better when I was in my 20s when I was actually playing, but I disappointed Ted when I took my T-shirt off.
All right. So with that in mind, we're going to go to cut number 3. This was Zeke yesterday, and essentially the question was, where does toughness to play through the injury stem from?
I think it's just mentality. I believe, my team needs me out there. I think the pain is temporary, and I need to be out there with my guys. So that's the priority. I think, it's my job to be out there, be available. And if I can be out there, why not? I'm not going to take a game off because I don't feel 100%. I think that's soft.
Shots at Dalton Schultz.
Actually,
I don't think Dalton Schultz should be out there right now either.
I have thoughts about that going back a couple of weeks. It did seem like at least one of those game absences was a tiny bit curious, but I think this is a problem in terms of what he can do when he is hobbled or more not 100%, because I know everyone will be like, well, no one's 100% at this point in the season. Like, I get all that, but this seems like it's taking a bigger chunk of him than it usually would. So I put together some numbers about last year after Zeke got hurt, and it is astonishing. So last year, before the PCL injury, Zeke had a tremendous start to the season. In 4 games, 86 yards per game, 4 touchdowns, and 5.3 yards per carry. All right, that number right there is incredible. After he got hurt, he had to tough it out. He had to do it for the team and everything like that. He went from 86 yards a game to 49 yards a game. He went from 4 touchdowns in 4 games to 6 touchdowns in 14 games, because I did factor in the playoffs as well. And he went from 5.3 yards per carry to 3.7 yards per carry. Those are astonishing drops, and it's a different deal where I don't mean this to bash Cooper Rush, but you felt like there was a discernible difference when Dak was out and Cooper Rush. How many people are there out there that think there is a giant difference between Zeke and Tony Pollard?
They're different running backs.
No. I mean, overall, in terms of quality.
They share the workload, and they should. They're different as in they're tough to compare on how they run, but to me, they need each other to be successful.
I don't necessarily agree.
I understand that Tony Pollard could run it 20 times
and we
for
don't
100
know.
yards per game.
We just don't know because they, for some reason... Now, the toughness factor, this part of like, hey, availability is the best ability. That's from the Joneses. That is hey, football doesn't make you tough. Football is a sport for tough people. That's a Parcellsism right there. Is you got to be tough. You can't go sit in the trainer's room all the time. You have to be out there on the field. Otherwise, you're not useful to us right now. And I think there are a couple things involved here. Zeke understands the connection he has a lot with a lot of his teammates, and his connection to them is, I'm going to be consistently doing my thing, and you guys need to be doing it too. Y'all get out there and let's play. If it's my concern, Kevin, is this an injury he needs to take the year off and just have a surgery and it's going to be better? Or is this an injury where he takes this week off and the bye week and comes back and is fine?
And I think that's where I'm going for now. Like, not obviously being in the room or understanding the medicals or anything like that. I definitely am not in a position to say he needs to take the rest of the year off. But when he says it's soft to miss time when you can play, I appreciate that tough aspect. But I'm also like, yeah, but would it be smart to go ahead and take this week off knowing, because like if he's not going to play right now, that's 3 weeks off for Zeke. So it's a week to get to the Bears game, 2 weeks once you get to the bye, and 3 weeks once you get back out onto the field. And I can't help but wonder if you're like practicing or doing some training, but not actually playing, how beneficial that would be for him as opposed to just going out there, because you do have Tony Pollard, and I get it. Like Tony Pollard is not as an adept of a blocker as Zeke. I'm not here to argue that whatsoever. But on the flip side, he's more explosive. I know people will argue he can't push the pile or get the tough yards. I think that, I think that is false. And so I think Tony Pollard and Zeke, like quality-wise across the board, if you factor everything in, I think you can make an argument they're equivalent, which is why I don't think the need is there for Zeke to show how tough he is, at least for this 1 week, when you have somebody else who can go out and do it.
Yeah, and I think that if you were to bring Malik Davis up, you can get tough yards out of him. He's probably going to fumble because that's just what happens, right?
Right.
And then you're sitting there going, that's why we need Zeke out there. But I think that Tony Pollard you can include more screen game. You can do more with him on the field that's going to catch the defense off guard, because you line Zeke up and it's like, okay, we kind of know what they're going to do here. Even though it's been kind of tough to stop for the most part, but you kind of know you're gonna have to deal with. You got to stop this guy about 3-4 yards in.
I do think in the Tony Pollard situation, which let's just say he plays the majority of snaps on Sunday because Zeke is limited.
Right.
Is I wonder, and I don't know, and nobody knows, right? Is at Pollard's size, how many times could he touch the ball 20 plus times / running and catching for how many years in a row until he would become Christian McCaffrey? Well, and you know
we're not re-signing this guy for the future. Like, all we have to worry about is this season and a couple of games, maybe at most. I don't know how long Zeke's injury is going to hurt him for. I'm not worried about 3 years from now. I'm worried about right now in this season, and can I get that production out of him for 4 games or this season alone?
And I'm with you.
And so that's kind of where I am with that. Sorry if I went off there.
No. I'm with you. Is who cares? In fact, what's the possibility that Tony Pollard is even a Dallas Cowboy next year?
To that point, I think
at best 50-50.
And it would be
and
awesome
people don't understand this, but this is where you have to protect yourself. And so I don't mind what Dalton Schultz is doing. When Zeke is like, hey, man, I think it's soft. Well, yeah, you got your lifetime contract. You're good. I mean, that's what athletes feel in these situations. For Tony Pollard, he has to watch himself because this is it. This is his contract is this is it. Whatever he gets this offseason, that's it. He did it. He made his money, and he's probably never going to make any more money after that contract is over. So Zeke doesn't have to protect himself.
He can jack that price up though with a good season, and that's the thing that I think the Joneses don't want to happen.
And that is an interesting hypothesis. I'm going to try to use that word at least every show now. But that's what I was curious about, Mike. I agree with you in terms of Tony's health, but I also do wonder, to Corey's point, if he sees, hey, right now my price is, I don't know, $5 to $7 million, whatever you think it is. And he's like, could I get it up to 10?
Or I think you're low on that number, but I understand what you're saying. What you're saying is, can I up my price by 33 to 50%?
You might be right. Yeah.
But I'm sure, yes is the answer. But from the Cowboys' perspective, for Tony Pollard, and this happens in sports, I hate to tell you people this, but this does happen. And this is where it's starting to get exposed a little bit, is, hey, man, doctor, I'm not sure, all the doctors that the Cowboys have. They have multiple doctors for multiple injuries. Hey, how's Tony Pollard? Well, I mean, you risk a little bit of long-term, injury if he keeps playing. Well, we don't have him long-term, so shut your mouth, and we're going to keep playing him, right? I mean, that happens in sports all of the time. Hey, I got this guy who I owe another 6 years and $150 million to. Man, long-term, you're taking a pretty big risk here. Well, you need to sit out because we have long-term investment in you. So I just wanted to make that point in a Tony Pollard versus Zeke, when Zeke's like, I think it's soft. Well, if Zeke was where he was 3-4 years ago, he would sit out. He sat out
Yeah.
when he didn't have his contract. He sat out. So your perspective changes on how tough you're going to be with how much money you have in the bank.